There's nothing worse than an AI-generated pitch. Developers on the prototype problem facing modern game funding. For many game developers today, the biggest hurdle in securing a publisher isn't finishing a game. It's convincing someone to fund the prototype that proves the game is worth making in the first place. A prototype, as Suspicious Developments founder Tom Francis describes it, is a playable build that meaningfully shows what's good about your game, a proof of concept. But crucially, he adds, it must be something a small team can build in an amount of time you can afford to lose. For most independent studios, that's exactly the problem. Time is scarce, budgets are tight, and there is no guarantee that a prototype, no matter how polished, will ever lead to funding. Yet, increasingly, publishers won't even consider a pitch without one. At this year's Digital Dragons conference in Krakow, representatives from studios including Jagex, 11-Bit Studios, Bloober Team, along with multiple independent developers, discussed how essential prototypes have become and how generative AI is beginning to complicate the process. The prototype pressure cooker. Hubert Pawlowski, lead developer at Maverick Soul Studios, is part of a veteran team including former developers from Dying Light 2 and Frostpunk 2. Their upcoming game, Before Darkness Falls, is a 3D survival tactics project built around defending a collapsing industrial compound on a hostile planet. The team's prototype was completed in roughly 6 months after initial support from the Digital Dragons Accelerator. For a small team, that timeline is fast, but Pawlowski stresses that speed depends heavily on experience. Juniors have had a very hard time delivering something that looks good enough to feel safe for investors and publishers, he explained. For teams like ours made up of veterans, it's much easier. That imbalance creates a structural problem. Experienced teams can pitch effectively, while newer studios struggle to reach the same baseline of publishable quality without significant upfront funding. Publishers want proof, not promises. For publishers, the requirement is simple. Ideas are not enough. 11-Bit Studios external development director Rufus Kubica explained that most publishers at their level are unwilling to greenlight projects without something playable. We usually like to sign projects that have prototypes, he said. We need proof of key features and unique selling points. A paper pitch is rarely enough. He added that unless a developer is already well known, publishers typically won't engage seriously without seeing gameplay. Even then, they often wait for video or prototype footage before committing. This creates what many developers describe as a chicken and egg problem. You need funding to build a prototype, but you need a prototype to get funding. A more risk-averse industry. Across the board, developers and publishers described a market that has become significantly more cautious. Kubica noted that while publishers often share knowledge and try to support indies, the overall environment has shifted toward risk reduction. There is a strange limbo, he said. If you cannot kick off things on your own, or don't have external funding, it may be difficult to find a publisher right now. At Bloober Team, publishing head Michael Gembicki was even more direct. A playable prototype is absolutely crucial. Without one, he said, securing a deal is close to impossible. Unless the studio has a strong track record or a recognizable IP. Even then, publishers often still want to see gameplay before committing. Jagex's senior business development director, Anna Moyston-Williams, echoed that sentiment, describing the current landscape as more risk-averse across the board, where anything that helps de-risk a project becomes essential. The rise of AI-assisted prototyping. As pressure mounts, some developers are turning to generative AI tools to speed up early-stage development. From tools like Unity Muse to experimental systems such as AWS's Argentic Arcade, which promises playable prototypes in minutes, AI-assisted development is increasingly positioned as a shortcut through the hardest part of pitching a game. But opinions across the industry remain sharply divided. Some developers argue AI could dramatically increase productivity, especially for small teams. Veteran Studio Plastic suggested that experienced programmers could use AI to accelerate routine work like UI systems, potentially multiplying output for tiny teams. Others are more cautious. While AI can assist in rapid ideation and early testing, publishers remain skeptical of prototypes built heavily with generative tools. Kubica noted that AI-generated pitches raise a fundamental question. How can I be sure this team can actually deliver the quality they're promising if everything is made by AI? He added that over-reliance on AI makes it easier for teams to oversell early concepts without having the underlying talent to execute them. There's nothing worse than an AI-generated pitch. For Bluebird team's Gambicki, the concern is even more blunt. There's nothing, there's nothing worse than an AI-generated pitch. While he acknowledged AI can be useful for market research and data visualization, he drew a firm line at using it for core creative assets like writing or artwork. Jagex's Moiston Williams agreed, warning that AI use is often easy to spot and can undermine trust if not handled carefully. Developers also worry about perception. Maverick Soul studio Poplowski noted that backlash against AI use in game development remains strong, and even early stage usage can negatively impact a project's reception. The backlash from using AI is so scary, he said. If people think your pitch is AI generated, they just lose interest immediately. The hidden cost of proving your idea. Beyond technical and ethical concerns, there's also a human one: stress. Pawlowski described prototyping as a first judgment day for a game, an early high pressure moment where a project must justify its existence. It could be exciting when funding and scope align, he said, but for teams starting from scratch, the pressure can strip away much of the creative joy. He also described how easily perception can shift once a prototype is shown. In one case, investors only began taking a project seriously after seeing a gameplay trailer, something that instantly validated ideas that had previously seemed too ambitious on paper. A system under strain. The modern games industry has made prototypes a gatekeeping necessity, but that requirement is increasingly difficult for new or underfunded teams to meet without external help. AI tools promise to lower the barrier, but they also introduce new doubts about authenticity, capability, and trust. For now, the industry remains stuck between competing pressures. Publishers want less risk, developers need more funding, and prototypes have become the fragile bridge between the two. Whether AI becomes part of the solution or another source of tension remains an open question. But as things stand, the prototype isn't just a pitch tool anymore, it's the price of entry. Yeah, um, well, I don't have too much to say to that. Um, you look at it and these aren't struggles that the big studios are facing. This is mainly independent studios, small studios. Like they said, you need a prototype to get funding, but you need funding to build a prototype. How do you make one if it requires the other that you're trying to get? Um, but let me know what you think. Personally, I think it's okay. I don't know about writing because writing is uh, such a broad term. Writing what exactly? I think AI is okay if it's used as a tool, if it's not heavily relied on. Um, Now, should it be writing the dialogue for a video game? Absolutely not. Should AI, but if say you have a game and you want AI to flesh out the idea so you know how to explain the idea clearly, that's fine, in my opinion. Um, you don't want the code written out by AI. You need people that, even if AI could do these things, which seems unethical, um, you still should have people that can do them without AI. AI wasn't around in the 90s and the 2000s and even the 2010s, at least not on a public scale. Um, I would even go as far to say, even in 2020, AI wasn't publicly available yet like it is now. But yeah, that's the best thing I could say to give my opinion. AI is okay if it's used as a tool. You don't let a tool you use a tool to do the job. In this case, which is creating a prototype. You don't let the tool create the prototype or do the job by itself. Um, and like I said, you don't want it to write dialogue, but maybe writing like the core idea or if maybe if you were writing a story and you backed yourself into a corner and you wanted to ask AI how to get out of that corner without changing the story, maybe. You know, it really but I mean, that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Um, and what do you think about the stress that these independent developers and small development teams are under, that they don't have that they need funding to work on a game? Otherwise, how are they going to pay their bills while they make that game? I mean, even games in the Atari 2600 era in the 80s, they still needed 3 to 4 months of development. So, I bet even games made by independent studios need a lot more time than that. So, it does sound like a tough issue. And like I said, I see the arguments from both sides. I should say I can understand the arguments from both sides. But let me know what you think.